Good afternoon, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, October 9th. There's a lot of school news in Arkansas today. For one thing, the Department of Education issued its annual report on the school grades given in Arkansas. These are the single letter grades to schools based essentially on a standardized test score. Not a very good measure of education progress, except the state education department thinks it does. It says some improvement in scores. Some scores have fallen back. A few more A schools, somewhat fewer F schools, still a lot of D schools. Everybody can go online and check their own school district. More plumbing to be done in that news. One of the biggest items on this list is Little Rock School District, which we've learned recently has supposed 8 F schools out of some 4 dozen schools. They're schools where kids are frequently making progress, but they draw exclusively from poor neighborhoods that tend to not do well on standardized tests. Thursday, the State Board of Education is going to decide what to do. Will it continue to exert some control over the school district, or will it give the people its school district back? Sam Ledbetter weighed in on the subject today. He was state board chairman 5 years ago when the board took over the Little Rock School District. He's decided now that it was a mistake. The state hasn't done well for the district, and it's time to get the district back in control of local people. He also says it's time to stop beating up school teachers. There'll be a rally tonight at Central High School for people in support of return of local schools to their own elected school board. It's drawing quite a bit of attention. Some setbacks this week for the Walton education machine. The Walton Family Foundation, you may know, spends literally billions nationwide on education issues. It's an advocate of what it calls choice, school vouchers, charter schools, any dissolution of local control of school districts, anything that kind of busts up the conventional public school system. Well, one thing happened yesterday. There appeared to be a contract in the works that was drawn up on the sly and somewhat hurriedly to set up a company that favors the school choice agenda to assess education spending adequacy in Arkansas. There was a resistance to that. It was spurred, as often is, by school administrators and others. Surprisingly enough, that contract wasn't approved yesterday in a legislative committee meeting. Close vote. There may be another vote, there may not be. We need a new education adequacy study because the state has fallen behind year by year since 2003 when the Lakeview decision came down. Finally, one other thing sort of interest, there's been some developments in the blog world. Kathy Fry, a former Democrat Gazette reporter, spent 3 years working for an outfit that lobbies for charter schools and is funded by the Walton Family Foundation. She didn't like everything she saw when she worked there, and because of the coming Little Rock situation, she's writing blog posts about some of the things that she found untoward in the course of working for what essentially was a Walton education machine. You might find it interesting. There's a link to her work on the Arkansas blog both yesterday and today. You can find it there. In other news, an Arizona county assessor has been indicted in a multi-state investigation of his participation in what's described as an adoption fraud ring. Pregnant women were brought from the Marshall Islands to deliver children that were then adopted in fraudulent adoption proceedings. A lot of this action occurred in Arkansas, where some other people have been charged previously. Some 32 counts naming this lawyer in Arizona, who's also a county official there. Other news, the Gulfside Casino Partnership, which hopes to win a casino permit in Pope County, but which is currently behind with current county officials who favor a Cherokee application, is in court with a number of interesting legal findings. The state is trying to get its lawsuit dismissed. It opposes that, and it wants an injunction against the Racing Commission awarding a casino permit until it hears Gulfside's argument. Gulfside, you may remember, lined up approval from local officials who were lame ducks in December. They said they favored the Gulfside application. That too was something of a sub rosa deal, but Gulfside is now arguing that the Constitution doesn't allow the rules change that came along that said only permit applications that are accompanied by letters of approval from current office holders count. Gulfside said it had current office holders at the time when it first sent its letter. And the interesting thing that came out in a filing yesterday was that an attorney for the State Racing Commission said their interpretation in December was correct, that those people who were then in office was good enough to have a valid application. And also an attorney for the Bureau of Legislative Research raised a question about the legality of the new state rule and new state law that adds additional requirements to the constitutional amendment. We're a long way from a decision on all of this. Lonnie Joseph Parker, a doctor in Texarkana, was indicted last week, and it was announced yesterday for overprescribing opiates and codeine-laced cough syrup. Interesting case for a variety of reasons. For one thing, he has a history. He was charged, convicted, and unsuccessfully appealed that conviction on a child pornography possession conviction some years ago, went to prison, was released, got his medical license back. The legislature tried to cut him off from the Medicaid program, but he's established a practice in Texarkana. He says he's an expert in pain management. He thinks he's been unjustly pursued. The interesting thing about the indictment is that it follows by less than a week his restoration of full doctor's privileges last week by the state medical board. It did find that they thought perhaps he did overprescribe drugs and that he should cut down the rate of drugs somewhat, but it gave him his license back. And this week he finds himself in federal custody. He has a hearing today. Terry Hartwick, who was mayor of North Little Rock some 30 years ago, announced officially today that he is going to run again this year to succeed Joe Smith, who's retiring. Some good news for historic preservation buffs in Little Rock. It appears, based on my discussions with the owner of the old gay oil company building at 3rd and Broadway, a historic structure built almost 100 years ago, that a deal to purchase that building and raise it and put in its place a car wash right along a strip of historic buildings is not going to go through. The owner says he's seeking to terminate that contract. Well, the state fair starts Friday, and people are getting out their reviews of the state food fair, always a big event in the media world. One of the early reports says winners this year are fried lasagna on a stick and a funnel cake cheeseburger. Put that in your mouth and chomp on it. And meanwhile, resist. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.